Morning, folks. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School back down here at the Pathfinder Outdoor Classroom. I did a video several years back about, the trap string that I would keep on hand if I were doing survival type trapping or feeding my family with traps on a regular basis. And I think that video deserves an update at this point, 4 or 5 years later. And I've had some questions about it as well on some of my community pages and things like that about updating that video to what I think now after 5 more years of trapping animals. And so what I want to do is I want to kind of go over a quick list with you guys, and then we'll talk a little bit about the individual traps. We'll kind of show them to you in case you're unfamiliar. And then we'll also spread some photos in on this video as far as these traps with animals in those traps so you can kind of see what that looks like as well. So first of all, what I would say to you is that collecting traps for a longer term self-reliance scenario, whether it is preparing, whether it is homesteading, whether it's just you want to feed your family or supplement your diet off the landscape with natural food, you don't want to go buy cellophane wrapped steak that's $9 a pound at Walmart, and you want to be able to supplement that with food off the landscape, then it's very geographic in nature as far as what types of traps you should own. So I can only really speak to the eastern woodlands and the animals that I trap here in this area, although a lot of this will overflow to other areas as well. And I'm sure people will comment on this video about maybe the traps and the animals that they have that they trap, because some animals are not going to be in my area that can be trapped in other areas like lynx, like pine marten, like fisher. Those type things aren't here in eastern woodlands in this area, so I can't trap those. So I can only speak to what I can trap. So let's talk about the traps. I've listed 24 traps and some snares on here. So we'll take that list just a little at a time. So first of all, 6 dog-proof or coon cuff type traps. Those traps are fairly easy to carry. They do have some weight to them, but they're very easy to set, very easy to bait, very easy to maintain, and not a lot of time at each set to reset them or to set them up to begin with. 6 of those will keep you in a lot of food. Those are capable of catching coon, possum, and skunk without a doubt. Those are definitely one of your best raccoon catching traps for any environment, and they're safe around homestead environments if you're trying to catch things like raccoons off your homestead that you won't catch your domestic animals in 99.9% of the time. So I would say 6 of those. 6 number 110 or number 160, and that depends on whether you've got 2 springs or 1 and how big the trap diameter is. But mink, muskrat, weasel, squirrel, all of those types of small game animals can be taken with those smaller traps. They're fairly easy to set. They're a killing trap, so you don't have to waste a bullet or anything else when you get to the set. The animal's going to be dead. They're definitely best used in the winter time so that the animal will freeze or at least be cold enough that the meat won't go bad before you get to the trap. And they're also a very easy trap to set without a lot of danger to yourself while you're setting these type traps. So I would say 6 of those would also be good. 6 either 450 or 550 foothold traps for upland sets. And the 450 or 550 really depends on what your preference is. For me, I prefer the 450s because they'll catch the small animals and they'll definitely hold a coyote, at least coyotes in this area. Now, you may prefer a 550 if you have bigger coyotes, things like that. But 450s are capable of catching coons, possums, skunk, fox, coyote, and bobcat. Without a doubt, I've caught every one of those animals in a 450 foothold trap. I've caught most of those animals in a 550 as well, although a 550 will do more damage to the animal when it's a smaller animal than a 450 will. But if you're worried about a 450 holding a large coyote in your area, then 550s are probably the way to go. Number 220 conibear traps. So something much bigger than the smaller 110s and 160s. Something that in some areas has to be at least touching water or in water to even be set. But if you have the ability or the luxury to set them on land, more power to you. I would have 4 of those. Those things will take coons, possums, beaver, smaller beaver, otter, nutria, and groundhogs. So you're running the gamut here on the animals in eastern woodlands you can catch, depending on the trap you have. A 220 conibear is a little more dangerous. It takes a set of setters to set it. It's a little more dangerous for the person setting the trap in case you were to get trapped in one or snapped into it yourself. You need a rope or some type of pull setter to get yourself out of it, no doubt. It's not a trap that I would recommend to somebody who's brand new to trapping, but it is a very good trap, again, for killing the animal immediately and catching a pretty good variety of animals at the same time, depending on where it's set. 330, I would say 2 330 conibears is enough for anybody in this area. A 330 is a much more dangerous trap and harder to get yourself out of if you get hung in it, although a rope or a pull setter will do the job. But you can catch larger beaver, larger nutria, and large otter in a 330 that you might not kill immediately in a 220. And then snares, I've got 12 snares written on here, miscellaneous sizes, and I've got all of the above because there's nothing on this list that you couldn't catch in a snare. The difference with snares is, snares, unless you have a way to repair them or refurbish them, are pretty much a one and done. So if you've got a snare making kit where you can make different size snares and put, new swivels and new wire and things like that on them, then snares are a good way to go because they don't take up a lot of room. If you're carrying them out to set them, they're fairly easy to set, and they're pretty good for blind sets and things that you don't have to worry about baiting those. So snares are good for that. Well, I'd say you have 12 snares, miscellaneous, maybe 6 coyote snares, 6 mink-sized snares or coon-sized snares, and that will supplement your kit well. But there's nothing that can take the place of these steel traps that, if well taken care of, they're going to last for decades, and they're going to catch food for you over and over, time and again. So that's my list of what I would say every homestead should have if you're trying to feed your family off the landscape, or if you're preparing with traps for being able to take food off the landscape. These are the traps that I would suggest. Are you going to put these things in a backpack and walk off into the woods? Hell no, you're not. You're going to have conveyance of some sort, or a minimum of a sled, or some way to store these traps so that you can take them out little by little to set a line out of a backpack or trap basket. But I have no problem with setting this many traps on a line over time, carrying them out a little at a time and setting them, and then collecting them a little bit at a time at the end of the season. So you can do this even if you only have the pack on your back to carry them and set them, and you just need a place to store them in the meantime. It's not something you're going to keep stored in a backpack, carry that off and come back, carry it off, come back. You're not going to put all this stuff into one basket and carry it, that's for sure, because you're going to have well over 100 pounds of stuff right here by the time you're done. But stored in a shed or something like that, this is the perfect homestead setup, I would say, for the Eastern Woodlands. Okay, guys, so real quick, just to look at a few of these traps. And again, I'll put some footage in this video, different places of animals in traps, what these traps look like, things like that. But I want to give you a quick look at them. I have videos past. I have over 100 videos in my modern trapping series. You can see all these traps in action. You can see how to set them, what they look like individually, and things like that in those videos if you go back and look at that playlist called Modern Trapping. So let's talk about our coon cuff first, or our dog-proof trap. I generally just cable these around an object like a tree or a tree root or something like that. They're easy enough. You just stick them in the ground. After you set them, this is spring loaded with a trigger in the back side, so the animal reaches in to grab the bait, sets it off, and encapsulates his hand inside the trap. Real simple, easy to set, easy to maintain. You have to have bait for that trap, but there's lots and lots of things you can use for bait in those traps you may have around the homestead. 110s, 160s. This is a 110 conibear right here. This is a Belial. It has one spring. The 160s have 2 springs and are a little bit larger than this. This trap right here, you get your hand in here, it's going to hurt, but it's not going to break your hand. Anything beyond this gets a little more dangerous. These fold up fairly small and they're flat, so they're fairly easy to carry, quite a few of them in a pack at a time. And they have good versatility as far as the animals they will catch. The 220 is larger with 2 springs. Now you're starting to get up into the area of a trap that you don't want to get your hand into, okay? This stuff right here will put the hurt locker on you. You get into a 330, you're talking about a major league size trap right here. And that number, that 330, means 330 pounds of pressure per square inch when the trap shuts. So this thing is big enough probably to break your hand. Definitely big enough to make it hateful to get off. You're going to have some kind of a rope to unset this thing if it gets caught on you, or some kind of a drawing setting device. And I've got videos on all that stuff in the past. You can go look at it in my Modern Trapping series. But that just gives you a really quick look at those traps. And then snares obviously are just a circle of wire. Depending on where you live and what the rules and regulations are, how that snare has to be set up, We do sell them on our website that are already ready to go in coyote snare, bobcat snare, and mink snare sizes, which are good survival size snares. And we sell all these other traps on our website as well. So you can go look at that if you'd like. It's not a problem. Or you can go to any of the big trapping houses like F&T or Cumberland. Any of those big trapping supply houses have this stuff as well, and you can go check them out as well. So that's just a quick rundown of what I think you should have on a homestead. Now, this is a family size setup. This is not one person necessarily, but it's good for one person. But it's good for up to probably 4 or 5 people in the household as well, because you can catch plenty of food with this many traps. But again, it's not something you're just going to carry around in a backpack. It's something you're going to store and carry away from and back to. So with all that said, guys, I appreciate you joining me for this quick update on the, what would I have in my trap inventory for a longer term situation. This is it. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, for our business, all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Thanks.